Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a good weekend. The weather's a bit better today. It's been a bit touch and go for most of the week, but it's looking quite sunny at the moment, which makes a change for the UK. So when I started this channel, I've been doing the YouTube channel for about 2.5 years approximately, on a kind of sort of full-time basis, let's say. I started as a marketing channel, and it still is a marketing channel. I still make vlogs about tech, SaaS platforms, digital marketing, all that kind of stuff. And for the foreseeable future, that's going to be the kind of niche for the channel. But I am starting to kind of weave gradually into the channel content, stuff about travel tech, luxury travel, and some elements of kind of lifestyle and stuff. So I just want to kind of use that as kind of a building block for what's going to happen in the future with the channel. So it's still going to be marketing, still going to be tech, but I am trying to kind of just pivot it just slightly over towards luxury travel tech, while still covering a lot of the marketing and the SaaS platforms, software as a service. Okay, so for today's video I thought I would do something a little bit different, not vastly different, but a little bit different. And I'm going to be talking to you about some of the tech that's out there for the end users to try and find the best travel deals on like accommodation, flights, eSIMs, all that kind of stuff. I thought that would make quite a good topic for a video. And I've got some stuff in front of me, some stuff written down, some stuff in my head and my heart. So I'm going to be kind of using a combination of all three for the video. No particular format, we're just going to go with the flow. It is a format, but what I mean is, in no particular order, I'm just going to get it out. So yeah, let's kick off. So obviously you will all be aware, especially those who live in the UK, where I am based, that everything's going up in price, from energy, fuel, food, and all the other associated costs, because everything's got a knock-on effect. So as a result, going on holiday, travel, even if it's a short break, it's becoming more expensive. Even if you're just going to France for the weekend, it's not more expensive than it used to be, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And same is happening with flights at the moment because of the Iran war, jet fuel shortages and stuff. I was reading something in one of the newspapers just a night or two ago, the digital version of one of the kind of national tabloids in the UK, and they were saying that in Europe a lot of the airports are going to be running short on jet fuel if the crisis isn't resolved and the Strait of Hormuz isn't opened. Now, it's not a political video, I'm going to kind of move away from that now so that it doesn't get flagged as a political video, but ultimately, it is more expensive to go on holiday now, even if you booked before all this stuff kicked off, like I did. There's still a risk to it, because if it's still going on in sort of mid to late summer, some of these airports might not have the fuel to allow the return flight to take place. That's if you can get out there in the first place. But let's get back to this. I've got some stuff in front of me. I don't know kind of which way to attack it first. Let's kind of just scroll down to the bottom of this. I've got some notes in front of me as well. I've kind of broken it down into a number of different sections. So, things like accommodation, trip planning, transport and route planning, accommodations. And it's interesting, there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I'm sure many of you would have heard of, a lot of the most common platforms, like Skyscanner and Booking.com and stuff like that. But there's a lot of other ones out there as well, and maybe I'm just going to kind of read through the list and tell you some of these and put them in the description, and then we'll fill in some of the blanks afterwards. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe that's a good way to attack it. So, flights and deal finders. Now I've flown a lot, as I'm sure many of you have. For long haul flights, in the past I've used like Flight Centre and STA Travel, and that's because if you need to change the return journey because you want to stay a bit longer or come home a bit sooner, it's a lot easier to just shoot an email off to the guys at STA Travel or flightcentre.co.uk, and they can just go into their system and change it, and they've got special allocations. They can just change the return date depending on what kind of ticket you've got. So look, I've used Skyscanner quite a lot. That's a good flight comparison site with a lot of these things, not just flights, but other kind of travel elements as well. You can search for something and set up like an alert, so that if the price goes up or down, you'll get a notification, and very often if the price goes down, that's the time to book it. So Skyscanner is good. Skyscanner.net, I use it a lot actually. It brings up all the airlines, and you can select whether you're looking for like a direct flight, or whether you're looking for one change or two changes, or you can even select particular airlines you want to include or exclude from the search. It's really good, free to use, and you can set up like an alert. So let's just say you want to fly from London to Istanbul, something like that. You can look at the price, you can look for the best deal, all airlines, and then you can set up an alert, and you'll get kind of notified when the price drops down by sort of whatever it drops down by. It could be 50 quid, could be 100 quid or less. So Google Flights, that's another good platform. Googleflights.com google.com/flights. I've used that as well. It's free to use, and there's a lot of inventory on there. You can sometimes see stuff on there that you can't see on Skyscanner. As with all of these systems, we've got deals with different airlines, so that their inventory, that's the flights, shows on their systems, and it varies from platform to platform. That's well worth looking at. There's another one called Hopper, so hopper.com. AI price prediction tells you when to book. See, that's interesting, isn't it? The AI will tell you when to book based on kind of historic highs and lows and stuff. And sometimes you will see, well, not sometimes, all the time, you'll see on Skyscanner when you get the results, it will give you like a color coded calendar. So it'll be like green, if it's the cheapest day to book, and then like amber, a bit more expensive, and so on. So yeah, that's becoming an increasing popular trend in these kind of flight booking engines, or let's say flight comparison sites. So Kayak, you probably heard of that one as well. You can look for different things. It's got very strong filters and price forecasts. Kayak.com. Another one you might not have heard of called Momondo. Yeah, so that's like a visual flight comparison site. So you get like a bit more visual. Let's just click on it, bring it up. I like doing these videos in real time because you never know what you're going to find. So okay, I've got it from front of me. Use your blurb, reject cookies or accept cookies. Where do you want to go? So let's just put something in at random. Okay, bish bash bosh, done. Let's just pick a random date, come back and see what comes up. Okay, they're all pretty good, to be honest. They all pretty much do the same thing, but you get different results and different features. Yeah, so it's very similar to Skyscanner. The results are, so the dates that I put in show in red, because there's like a color coded thing at the top, and it's like a graph, and you can see the prices and stuff. The key to this stuff is to shop around. It's a bit like a supermarket shop. You have to compare the products in the different supermarkets, because you're going to find different deals, higher or lower, at different vendors. So it's the same with this, pretty much. Yeah, it's very, very similar to Flight Scanner. Not identical, but the concept is certainly very, very similar. Let's get back to this. There's quite a few of these things. Kiwi.com is another one. So yeah, www.kiwi.com mixes airlines for cheaper routes. So sometimes you'll find that when you carry out a flight search on these comparison sites, it's definitely true of Skyscanner. It will mix and match certain airlines with, like, say, maybe you'll get an outbound with British Airways and a return with EasyJet, or that type of thing. So if you're looking to really save money and get the best deal for your buck, or best bang for your buck, let's say, then these flight comparison sites really do deliver. It's very common. So another one's called Wego, W-E-G-O, not the weight loss jab, but their flight comparison sites. So yeah, this one, let's just click on this one. There's loads and loads of them, and this is why I thought it'd be good to make a video about this, because this is, obviously everyone likes to travel. Most people like travel. Everyone's looking to get away, especially in the current climate. Things are costing more nowadays. So yeah, I thought it would kind of resonate with a lot of people. Still kind of travel stroke tech related, but something a bit different. Yeah, so same kind of thing here. You can book one-way, multi-city round trip. It says trusted by 83 million travelers worldwide. It's connected to 700 plus travel websites in one simple search. So it's a massive flight comparison travel. You can book accommodation on it as well, hotels and stuff. Yeah, it's with the kind of technology boom. As you've seen from some of my other videos. More geared towards the marketing side of things, because of the kind of what's called not just AI but the XML feeds, which is like that's how these computers talk to each other, and the explosion of technology. That's what's made these flight comparison sites possible. So the fact that you can have one platform but does a search across 700 different travel websites just because of these XML feeds, the way it's called an API, XML feed API, same thing. It's a bit of code that allows one computer to talk to another, and that's why we're seeing this explosion of comparison sites, not just in travel but also other areas like moneysupermarket.com, where you can compare financial products and stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I'll put all this in the description, you can have a look, but there's loads more, by the way. So moving on to accommodation. Now, you all heard of booking.com. I use that all the time. What's quite kind of reason, there's a lot of good sites out there. I don't want to just say one's good and the others aren't as good, because that's not a fair comment. But booking.com is a household name, everyone's heard of it. I use it a lot. You can book accommodation very often without a deposit and with free cancellations. So if your plans change, which at the moment in the current climate, that's a distinct possibility, and you can cancel without penalties. So that's why that's popular. And they've got a huge amount of inventory, hotels, apartments, etc., etc. You can literally narrow down what you're looking for: breakfast, air conditioning, swimming pool, balcony, etc., etc., etc. So that's a great site. That's often noted as the best all-round travel accommodation app, but there are others. Airbnb, so I've used them as well. With Airbnb, you have to pay for it all at once. If not all at once, you have to pay a chunk of it, and the rest within whatever's been defined by the accommodation owner. It's very often either all up front or sort of 40-50% up front, and the rest within 10 days. So you do have to have the money in your account to book that. Some good deals on Airbnb. I've stayed in a couple of Airbnbs, in Lisbon and Manila and different places, and it's well worth doing. A lot of these Airbnbs are in quite modern apartment blocks, in good city centre locations near Starbucks, cafes, taxi ranks, nightlife and stuff. So it's worth doing, as opposed to it's guys, just hit and miss. Sometimes you can book a hotel and you think you're doing the right thing, and it can be miles out, or some distance from all the action, or however you want to phrase it. And other times you can book an Airbnb and you can see exactly where it is on the map as you can a hotel, and you can perhaps plan things a little bit better. But you just got to do it's all about research. Whatever destination you're going to, if you've not been there before, or if you have been there before, you're in an even better position, because what what kind of area you need to be based in. So okay, some more here. So Hostelworld, this is like a hostel site. So don't really do hostels anymore, but if you want to stay in like a hostel, you can cut the cost down, but obviously it's not the same as like an Airbnb or a hotel where you've got like an ensuite bathroom and your own private space and stuff. Expedia, it's another popular site. I've used that quite a bit, as I have a Podo as well. With that you can book flights, accommodation. It's not exactly the cheapest, although it can be. You just need to get lucky and pick the right dates and the right deals. But I found that if I'm right, Expedia got taken over by a company. I think it's a Spanish company. I'll double check that. But I've used a Podo as well, and a Podo, it might be a Podo that got taken. I think it was a Podo that got taken over by a Spanish company. Expedia is still based in the UK. But yeah, there's Expedia.co.uk and Expedia.com, but they all do the same thing, guys. But you just got to shop around, as if you doing a monthly supermarket shop, you know, you might get some things cheaper from Sainsbury's, from Lidl's, from Tesco's, from Morrison's, from Aldi. So it's the same kind of principle, yeah. Okay, so some more apps here. So transport and route planning. So there's one called Omio, which compares trains, buses and flights in Europe. You know, sometimes, especially if you're doing like a multi-trip itinerary, it makes sense to do research on this because it can be cheaper to get the bus, you know, split the different segments up of your journey. So maybe you get a flight into a European city and then you get a train to another one, a bus or a coach to another one, and then a flight to another one. And by doing that, if you're flexible and physically able and stuff, you can really cut down the costs and maybe also see a bit more of a journey. You know, as much as I like flying, you don't really see much, you know, unless you're on a kind of flight over the North Pole and you're seeing the scene, this kind of scenery of Greenland and stuff like that. You don't really see that much on a flight. Yeah, it's good fun, but it's not the same as seeing some of these places by train. It's like once I went down to Nice from Gare du Nord, I believe that's right, Gare du Nord in Paris, and I went on TGV, and although it's like flying at super fast speeds, you do get to see a lot of the countryside and a lot of the native French people, and you know, it's definitely adds something to the journey as opposed to just doing like a 1 hour flight from Paris. So there's another one here called Rome to Rio. So this one shows every possible route between locations. So let's just say you want to get from Paris to Madrid. On this site, Rome #2 Rio, so rometorio.com, it will show you all the different ways you can get there and all the different routes and stuff. Yeah, worth looking at. Now let's just click on it. Yeah, why not? I haven't got time to click on each one because the video is going to be too long, but I will try and do that with some of them just to, yeah, so let's just bang in Cardiff to Barcelona. Yeah, see, it all stops. Nice and easy. Okay, so yeah, it brings up train, bus, the best, quickest way to drive, 7 more options. Let's click on that. So yes, it's interesting how, as I said, with the explosion of tech, travel tech, you know, especially from an end user point of view, how there's so many more options now for people to kind of research and plan their trips, you know, as opposed to in the past. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, you know, people used to literally just go to a travel agent, and there wasn't any other way to do this, and you kind of take the travel agent's word for it. Now there's all these platforms out there, not just in marketing but in travel tech, where, you know, people can do a lot of this stuff themselves, and they can plan the journeys and estimate the times and book different add-ons and find the quickest, cheapest route or best way to get there, let's say. So the game's completely changed. Yeah, so there's 7 more routes. You know, you can train to Bristol Airport, fly to Geneva, cost. I mean, so, some of them are cheaper, some of them it gives you the times and the approximate cost. Yeah, so if you want to get there in 15 hours, it's 297 quid. That's just one cheaper, and that's 7 hours 57 minutes. Fly from, yeah, train to Luton Airport, fly to Barcelona, blah blah blah. It's between 111 302 pounds. Bus between 91 296 pounds. That's 29 hours 55 minutes. So there's all kinds of different options, and it's good to know the score, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. Because if it's going to take, like, you know, let's say a day and a half to get there, and a day and a half to get back, that's a day and a half or 3 days, 2.5 days, 3 days less of your holiday. You know, so sometimes it does pay to pay a bit more and just to fly from Bristol or Gatwick or whatever. You know, you can be there in an hour and a half, you know, instead of wasting a day. Let's come out of that. Yeah, fascinating subject, isn't it? So there's another one called FlixBus. I've heard about. I was looking at it the other day. It's like a low-cost bus company. You know, they go all over Europe, even from Cornwall up to, you know, Bristol Airport. That's where I was looking at it. You know, really cheap. With FlixBus, you've got the possibility to block out the seat next to you, so you can have 2 seats to yourself. So I think they phrase it as sitting neighbour free, and I think you pay an extra 10 quid for that, so you can have both. You know, if you've got, you know, if you like your privacy and you've got a few more bags and stuff, a laptop, you can literally just have 2 seats to yourself, and it's still under 35 quid with all the add-ons, so it's not bad. So that's flixbus.com. I'll put all this in the description. BlaBlaCar, so ride sharing across Europe. Yeah, I've heard about concept before. Let's click on it and have a look. So it doesn't really appeal to me because I'm a sociable person, but you know, how do you kind of know who you're going to be sharing with? You know, what happens if you're sharing with somebody for, you know, a day and a half and you booked it and paid for it and stuff, and then you don't get on with them? So that's probably what I wouldn't do. So you look at the site BlaBlaCar, and there's loads of different countries. So let's just click on UK. See what comes up. So there's a couple of fields here: leaving from, going to, today, one passenger search. I'll let you check that out in your own time. You know, there's all these. Yeah, it's worth a look. It depends on what your budget is. You know, if you've got a super tight budget and you know you maybe got like 2 or 3 weeks off, yeah, it might make sense, especially if you're like a lot younger, 20, 25, maybe 30 and stuff. If you've got like a fixed amount of time off and you've got to be back at work within 2 weeks, you know, especially if you're going with your partner or your best friend or whatever, it might make sense to jump on a flight or Eurostar or whatever. So yeah, have a look. That's BlaBlaCar.co.uk. Again, I'll put it in the description. Trainline.com, so you know, if you want to book European train travel, you can do that. Like for UK, it's like nationalrail.co.uk, but for European train travel, it's the trainline.com. I've used that before as well. There's quite a few more of these things, guys. You know, this is where I said I'll start the video this way rather than just blabbering on about a load of stuff, and then because I wouldn't have time to put it in the video without making it too long. Yeah. Okay, so next one, so trip planning and itinerary apps. So these are the kind of apps which you would use to do your search and plan your trip and all that kind of stuff. So the first one is Tripit, TRIPIT, tripit.com. Auto builds your itinerary from emails. So let's just click on that. So I didn't mean to slam that button then. Okay, so it's just, you got all the normal cookies and stuff. So organise your travel itinerary automatically. Imagine checking one place for your travel details and getting a heads up as things happen throughout your trip. See why life without Tripit is a distant memory for millions of travellers. So that's kind of worth a look. You know, see if it floats your boat, see if it works for you. It won't work for everybody, but you know, yeah, I mean, in this age of technology where everything's kind of built around apps and smartphones and websites and SaaS platforms, the whole process of, you know, how we research destinations, you know, whether it's looking at YouTube, which is what this video is for, to planning the trip, finding the best deals, it's all completely been upended. And well, you know, there are clear benefits obviously, because you know, consumers can cut down the costs and cut down the time and cut out some of the middlemen. I mean, it's been a long time since I've walked into a travel agent in the UK, to be honest, purely because of this. You know, you know, even if you're flying long haul and you're looking for an airfare, we might be a bit niggly with multi-stop, and you want to check the fare rules. You know, all it takes is like an email to, like, you know, Flight Centre or something similar to that, and they can check that out for you. You know. But the days of kind of walking into a travel agent on the high street to book, you know, a short break in Europe for a week to 2 weeks, I think is over, and that's why, you know, those jobs are severely at risk. I think the average, from what I saw locally, you know, on Indeed, you know, the travel agent, I think the basic salary is quite low, you know, part-time, sort of 12 grand, something like that. I mean, it's not much, it's really not, and that's because, you know, the commissions have been massively reduced as people are booking online, booking through apps, picking up the phone, booking direct with the tour operators, and you know, and so on. So yeah. Okay, there's another one here called Wonderlog. So collaborative trip planning, great for groups. Yeah, let's say if you're organising a school trip or like a scout trip or something along those lines, or there's some kind of social club and they're planning like to organise some kind of trip in the UK or abroad. This might be a good way of you know, planning it collaborative, you know, on a collaborative basis. You know, so yeah, I won't click on that because I haven't got time to click on every one. Here's the next one, Travo. So AI, it's an AI planner, so AI itinerary generator. So yeah, I've come across this kind of thing before, where there's a number of these things, it's not the only one, where you basically put in some suggestions or the name of a destination, and it will build like a 5-day itinerary using the AI, and it'll pick out all kinds of things you wouldn't have time to discover necessarily by yourself within a certain time frame. And it's great, you know, it certainly gives you ideas without you doing a lot of the hard work and the legwork. Another one called Notion.so, yeah, Notion.so, bit of a strange ending there. Custom travel planning dashboards, so navigation and local transport. So obviously you've all heard of Google Maps. How many times have we all used that? You know, I've used it loads of times when I've been in London or something and I'm trying to find an address, and you put the postcode in and it'll, you know, maybe you're close by and it'll just tell you, you know, it's around the corner on the next right and stuff, and it'll kind of mark the spot. So that's great. You can use it in the car as well if you're traveling throughout Europe, you know, Google Maps, free to use by the way. Another one called City Mapper, best for public transport in cities. Waze, W-A-Z-E, real-time driving navigation. So that's like, you know, some of the delivery drivers use that. It's like an app, and you can have it installed on your phone in the van, and yeah, it's very good. Okay, so some more. So connectivity, eSIM apps. So this is the thing, you know, with the mobile phones, obviously, no doubt yourselves as well, you use things like WhatsApp and Telegram and stuff because they're free, right? You know, if you're, you know, abroad in a different country and using your mobile phone, it costs more money because, you know, you're paying roaming charges and stuff. And I believe legislation has come in the last few years to kind of cap what these mobile phone companies can charge, regardless of whether you're on pay-as-you-go or contracts, but it still costs more money than, you know, using WhatsApp or Messenger or Telegram and stuff. So as a result, you know, a lot of these companies have kind of innovated and they've brought out these eSIMs. So it's basically a SIM card which you, before you go away, you can do your research, you know, as to find the best eSIM. The rates are much cheaper. And basically when you get there, you haven't got the hassle of, you know, getting like a local SIM card and handing over your passport and all that kind of nonsense. It's not nonsense, but that's what happens, you know. So there's a site here called Airalo, yeah. Put that in the description as well. Cheapest eSIM plans across Europe. So you just need to look at where you're going and how likely you are to be using your phone while you're abroad. I must admit, when I travel, you know, I keep in touch with most people on WhatsApp and, you know, Telegram and blah Messenger and stuff like that, because, you know, why would you spend any money when most of your friends or the people you speak to are using those apps? Yeah. There's another one called Saily, S-A-I-L-Y. So secure eSIMs, VPN backed. So yeah, you know what VPN is, virtual private network. So basically it claims that it's a bit more secure because it's VPN backed. There's one called Holafly, unlimited data plans, you know. But guys, you know, if you're like me, if you're traveling, you know, I'm not on the phone every 2 minutes, every 5-10 minutes, you know, sending every photo of every site, every meal, every drink, you know, back to the UK, because I just don't see the point. The whole point of going on holidays to, you know, escape from that for a week or two and maybe, you know, send a bit of an update to your friends and family, you know, once, maybe a couple of times a week, not every hour, not every day. So I don't see, unless you're on business, I don't see how an unlimited data plan could maybe come into play, because a lot of these hotels and the Airbnbs have all got, you know, Wi-Fi and stuff, so you shouldn't have to worry about that, you know. Another one here called Ubiggy. That sounds weird, doesn't it? I don't like that name. Great for tethering and multi-device use. I'll put that in the description as well. You do come across some strange names for these things, you really do. Okay, so money, budgeting and splitting. So you've all heard of Wise, you know, best for international spending. You know, if you've got a bank account with Starling, you can also do the same thing. Free spending abroad. Revolut, travel-friendly banking, but it depends what plan you're on. For, you know, if you're based in the UK and you're with Revolut, which I'm not, by the way, then, you know, a lot of the plans do charge like a monthly fee. With Starling, it's completely free, and you still get fee-free spending. Although that is a bank account rather than just like an app you install and uninstall. You know, XE currency, yeah, I've used that quite a lot. It's good for comparing different currency rates to know if you're getting overcharged. Give you like the live rate, and it's got all the currencies in the world there. Splitwise, split costs with friends. Again, you can do that with Starling. So depending on who you bank with, maybe you don't need to download the app. Yeah, there's more. So if you're looking for like guides and stuff, you can get something called Get Your Guide, getyourguide.com, book tours, attractions, tickets. You can do your research before you even get there. It's good before you even get there. So there's another one here called Viator, so viator.com, tours and experiences worldwide. There's loads of these things, you know. This is why I thought it'd be good to make a video, because there's a lot of these sites out there and they're all categorized into different kind of areas, so to speak. But you know, obviously you'll be familiar with some of them, but there's loads more. That's why I thought I'd make a video. And there's probably loads more than this. I'm probably missing loads out. I just thought it would be a good topic to make a video about for a change, instead of marketing or very tech based. Okay, so flight tracking and travel utilities. Flight iOS, flighty.com is the website. Real-time flight tracking and delay alerts. So, you know, maybe if you're waiting for somebody at the airport, you can get like a live update if a flight's late or ahead of schedule and stuff. Flight Radar 24, that's quite a popular one. Track any plane live. Time shifter, so jet lag recovery planning. I've never heard about one. The best way I get over jet lag is just to sleep a long time. Yeah, I don't need an app for that, to be honest. Okay, bonus, less obvious but useful ones. So road trippers, road trip planning. So that's roadtrippers.com. Guru Walk, free walking tours, guruwalk.com. Blah blah blah. Yeah, so look, there's loads of these things. I'm gonna wrap up there, because I literally don't want to go on and on, but you get the gist, you get the idea. I think I did it the right way around, rather than trying to do that at the end, because it just made the video too long. So I hope you got something from it. I'll put all the stuff in the description. Thank you for watching, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you on my next video, and we'll be talking about something a little bit different. So take care, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you soon.